welcome to today's stream. Fingers crossed everything seems to be working alright. Do let me know if the audio levels need adjusting at all. And yeah, here we are. Now, you might recognize this character. I started working on her a few weeks ago. And yeah, quietly for you, you'll know exactly who this is. And today we are going to be working on the portrait painting elements. So we're going to be starting with the face and the hair, probably doing the hat as well as part of that ensemble, and just seeing how far we get. This is a very cool design. Her kind of adventure name is Lady Wolfram, and as you can see, she's got this really cool like second armored skin, almost Iron Man style, that's both underneath and over the top of her clothing. And yeah, she's just got a really cool vibe, so I'm really looking forward to working on her a bit today. Hey Rebel, yeah, I'm doing very well today. It's beautifully sunny, finally. We've had a few weeks of constant rain and storms, so it's very nice to have some nice weather. Thank you so much to Mora of the Coven for the follow, and also to Jay Derrick for the Prime subscription. That's incredibly kind. Seriously, Amazon Prime subscriptions mean a whole lot to small creators, as they really do make a big difference for us. And thank you so much to Kareem Zaimer for the follow as well. I hope you enjoy the stream today. And Libri Arcano, hi, welcome. So I think it's time we crack on with this this character. Oh, More of the Coven, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy it. We'll see how it goes. Now, this character is a full painterly detailed commission, so you're going to be getting some of my proper kind of painting techniques today, which we haven't done for a little while, so bear with me. So yeah, let's just crack on. The very first thing we're going to do is just lay down the base tone for the skin. This character is Kalashtar, and they have a lovely kind of pale, sort of desaturated lavender skin tone, with a slight kind of an ever such a slight gaunt kind of vampiric look going on. In fact, this character's skin tone is very close to a vampire character I designed a couple of last year, yeah. So that's kind of what I'm using as a touchstone for them. So the first thing to do is just to, oh gosh, my fringe is already annoying me. And the first thing to do is just to fill in where we're going to see bare skin, which in this particular character is not very much because they are wearing this kind of all over body armor which covers almost all of them. Tilly17. Yeah, I guess I did mostly coloring last week as well. I haven't done a line art stream for a little bit. No, actually, no, tell a lie. I think I did some line art last week, but not very much. So we'll see. Maybe on Friday I'll be working on line art. Who knows? Thank you so much to Ender Coloss and Dragons1492 for the follows. Hope you enjoyed the stream. Now, the only good thing about, not the only good thing, but one of the good things about there not being too much bare kind of skin means we get to the shading stage real quick. We don't spend ages blocking in colours. Of course, we do later on, but for now it means we'll get to the rendering phase nice and quickly. Kalashtar Asterisk, yes, yeah, I know that there's a lot of other interesting things going on with this character, which, Freya, you're more than welcome to tell the stream about your character, because I think she's really cool. Am I using Clip Studio Paint? No, actually, I use Photoshop CC. I've tried Clip Studio Paint, but it doesn't really work very well with my tablet. The very many bits of interface don't fit very well. I haven't got a very large tablet. Even Photoshop's a little bit squished in when I started learning to use it. So I don't use Clip Studio Paint. I know it has some fantastic usability and stuff that you can do with it. But unfortunately, it just doesn't seem to gel very well with my tablet. So I use Photoshop. And yeah, I bash Photoshop a lot, but it does have all the tools that I need, and it simulates kind of traditional painting quite nicely, which is very much my style. What tablet do I have? I'm using a Wacom Cintiq 16, not the Pro, which is a 16-inch Cintiq graphics tablet. 16-inch sounds like a whole lot, but when it's a screen tablet, it's not as massive as it sounds. So all of my windows and like toolbars are quite kind of squidged in. It also means I tend to, when I have reference up, I tend to have it up on a different screen rather than on the tablet I'm working on. I just find it kind of helps a bit. Okay, so we've started off, we've got our base colours down. Now, because this is quite an interesting, kind of fantastical skin tone, I'm going to be winging it and kind of working out the skin colours as I go along. But the first thing I do want to do is add a tiny bit of blush. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a very, very pale pink, make a new layer above the skin, make a clipping mask and set it to multiply. I'm going to be doing this quite a lot throughout this process, but for starters, I'm going to be just putting some gentle blush on the cheeks. And I don't want it to be too colourful. Again, this character has an ever such a slightly kind of gaunt look to them, but I still want there to be variations in tone, and you almost always get this sort of thing. So once I've kind of got that down, I'm just immediately going to merge it down and blend this colour into the surrounding areas. And I do this with a really large brush, making sure my transfer setting is turned on, which allows me to get this very soft, gentle kind of mix between the two. Hey, Raid123, welcome. Just gonna zoom in a bit more, use a smaller brush. One of the problems with using colours that are so similar to each other is sometimes my eyes really struggle to tell the difference. I have really terrible eyesight. I don't know if I've mentioned this on stream before. Like, my eyesight is abysmal, which is why I wear the thickest glasses ever. And some days it's better than others. Some days I really struggle to tell the difference between colours, so I have to kind of really get close to the screen, which isn't very good for you, but it's kind of just what you have to do. Okay, those tones are kind of blended in now, which is what we wanted. Just gonna adjust my headphones, try and pin back my hair a bit because it's really getting in my face. And with that done, we can start the actual shading. So once again, I'm just going to name this layer. I should really name my layers, get into good habits. I'm going to make a new layer above the skin, clip it, and this is going to be our shading. So once again, we are set to multiply. We are going to grab, again, a slightly less pink, kind of pale pinkish grey. That's a bit dark. We want to be very incremental as we add shadows. Good layer habits. Yeah, they're very good. You should, you know, I strive to have good layer habits. I often don't. And yeah, we're going to start by adding shadows to this character's face. And to do that, usually I begin underneath the jawline. I'm using my reference here. And then we follow around the shape of the jaw. I'm just going to add some on the chin. Usually we have a nice bit of shadow underneath the bottom lip, like so. And in this case, our shadows are gently moving over to the right. So there's going to be slightly more shadow on the right-hand portion of the face here. We have quite heavy shadows in the inner eye, especially on this right-hand side, where, as I mentioned, we're going to be getting a bit more kind of shadows playing around. And this stage is really kind of gently blocking these shapes in. We don't want to go too heavy, but we are going to have some more shadows in the kind of inner section of this eye. I'm going to switch down to a slightly smaller brush so I can just outline the eyelids. I usually outline the eyelids in shadow and then add light back later on. And then we often get shadow coming down in the corner of the eye. Oh, my jaw really hurts today for some reason. I think it's because I had to fit some vampire fangs for some cosplay yesterday. And to kind of let the stuff kind of set, you have to lie upside down with your mouth open for like 20 minutes. And kind of stop any kind of moisture getting to your teeth. Just going to do the same thing on this side, marking out the eyelids. Again, a little bit heavier on this side because, as I mentioned, it's going to be slightly more in shadow. We'll put some shadow on the ear as well. And then I'm just going to grab a lighter version of our shade colour just to start blending it in. I'm really excited. I've got a session 0 this evening for a new D&D campaign. A campaign that Reese is in, we're kind of starting to draw it to a close now. Whoops, Photoshop's doing a dollop. Which means starting a new game, and we're going to be using the Odyssey of Dragon Lords setting, which is very similar to Mythic Odysseys of Theros. Anyone who's familiar with the very ancient Greek style mythos, which is really cool. So I'm going to be potentially playing the character I cosplayed yesterday, actually, if you saw the pictures on my Twitter and Instagram, who is I'm going to be trying out the Vampire Unearthed Arcana race, which is going to be a lot of fun. Oh, the VTM, yeah, the VTM core book is quite pretty, I must admit. I wasn't a fan of the photo collage style at first, but I do really enjoy the slightly cyberpunky way they went with the colouring. I always like some bright colours. Oh, is Vampire actually in the new Ravenloft book? Oh, am I going to have to order the Ravenloft book? Oh no. Oh dear, I think I might have to if it's in the book. What's the, how is it very different to how it was on the UA to how it is in the book? I wasn't sure if they'd nerfed some of the abilities. Awesome, I might have to pick up Van Richten's then, because it sounds very up my alley. And useful if I'm playing this character. But yeah, her name is going to be, I'm not totally sure yet. She's actually based on a VTM character of mine who is called Mallory, who was like a very old, she's based from the Dark Ages books back from when V20 was a thing. And she was a French gangrel vampire. But for this game, I'm probably going to, obviously we've got this kind of ancient Greek theming. I'm probably just going to keep her name as Mallory, but spell it slightly different, you know, kind of cheat. Interesting. I'll definitely have to check out the book then, because that's very exciting. I'm pleased it's no longer UA, it's kind of a bit more legitimate, and I can be like, look, DM, it's not UA anymore. It's official. I needed an excuse to buy that book anyway. Guess I have one now. Yeah, basically what we're doing here is we're just softening these shadows, making them really nicely blended in to the rest of the skin texture, which will give us the kind of smooth skin tone that we want. We don't want the skin tones to be harsh at any point. But yeah, it's kind of coming along quite nicely. Just gonna add, where do I want to add light? We'll be adding a lot of lights shortly, but for now I'm gonna go back to a white brush to, kind of on Photoshop, to take away some of the shadows we don't need so much. Hiding in bags of holding? That's kind of weird. I kind of like it though. I like kind of weird and wacky abilities like that. Also great for underwater sections of your campaign, I suppose. My character is going to be a druid. I was really tempted by the subclass in the Odyssey of Dragon Lords book, which is the Circle of Sacrifice, which is a really cool druid circle. But I really wanted to play a moon druid and go full feral child with this character, so... Moon druid will probably remain. Okay, so we've got this first level of shadow basically there. So I think it's time we grab a darker variant and kind of add that next step. Ooh, Tome of Beasts book. I'll have to check that out. My DM is a very creative DM who allows a lot of kind of homebrew stuff, so I will check that out. I know that, so part of the backstory behind my character when she was a VTM gangrel was that she spent a lot of time in the form of a huge black dog and would basically be a church grim and would stalk around churches and eat clergy. because BTN be like that. So I want to try and echo those spoopy times with this character. So big black dog. Probably use direwolf stats to start with. Just gonna add some more of this dark shading. Corner of the eyes and under here on the chin. Yeah, I think so. I think obviously we are going for the more kind of ancient Greek vibe and aesthetic, but I'll probably take a slightly kind of Cerberus angle, and I might even ask my DM if because it's technically, I believe, a challenge rating 2 creature when I get to level 6 is I think it's called a death dog. It's like a 2-headed black dog in the kind of list of canon creatures, and it would just be really cool to really lean into that kind of Cerberus aesthetic. Also, I'm looking to basically do a play on the kind of Andromeda from the Perseus legend. Obviously, in the Greek tale, she was like being sacrificed to the Kraken. But the way I want to do it is that instead of kind of being given over as a sacrifice, she was brought into a cult by nasty druids. I don't always subscribe to the idea that druids are always goody, sweet, we love nature. I quite like evil druids. It's the classic thing of in the kind of Greek mythological classical text, the parents boast about their children being more beautiful or stronger or better than the gods in some way, and the gods get jealous and are like, actually no, we're going to just kind of take your kid and punish you. So my character is probably going to be a play on the old Andromeda myth, where instead of being sacrificed to the Kraken, she is taken away and turned into a monster for those edgy vampire edgy vampire lore, but ancient Greek style, so it'll be a lot of fun. Okay, we're kind of making some good progress with this shading. I'm going to just add a little bit more in a few places, but very shortly I am going to merge this multiply layer down with the rest of the skin tone, so we can just kind of paint on one layer now that we've got a good kind of grounding for the colors. So let's merge that down to the skin layer. Oh, Quietly Fair, I'm sorry. I hope your puppy is okay. Yeah, we've got, I've had to close my windows because we've got our neighbours are landscaping next door, so it's very loud. They had like a cement mixer the other day. Which is a shame because it's a beautiful sunny day and my office is very stuffy. Right, it's time for the Overlines layout. I'm going to bring it in early because I really want to start getting some detail on here. So let's just name that because I'm trying to be good and well behaved and name everything right. Switch to all layers when it comes to our eye dropping. And just grab a slightly deeper, darker purple. And I'm essentially going to paint over the lines right now. When Photoshop decides that I'm allowed to. There we go. Because I also want to round out that part of the chin a tiny bit. And just start working back some of the heavy line art colours because we don't want them to be quite so heavy. There we go. It gets a kind of softer jawline. Oh, it is very hard to be a puppy in this day and age. You know, this economy, puppy life is hard. But I hope they are doing okay. Just gonna add some more dark to the eyes. The eyes are gonna be quite not kind of gothic, but quite heavy, dark smokiness around the eyes. Like so, just kind of adding that detail in fairly early. I quite like to get the shape of eyes nailed down quite soon in like the painting process. Oh, I love the themes of Scylla. It's kind of like, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Uncaged anthology. I really like turning ancient Greek myths, especially of female characters, on their head because Greek mythology isn't particularly generous to femme characters, and I kind of wanted to do something about that because I like playing femme characters a lot, and I want to kind of make sure that they have a nice kind of empowering story. It's no fun to play D&D after all if your character's getting shafted. So cool. So there's a little bit more shading detail on those eyes. Thank you so much to Orange Ocarina, Simply Guardian, and GS Sprite Live for the follows. I hope you enjoy the stream. A nice chill shading stream today. Kind of see how the face is coming along. Oh yeah, another thing I want to point out about this particular commission is it's going to have quite a complex, well, a more complex than usual background with elements of stars and constellations in it. But I'm going to do that. I decided, it took me a long time and a lot of deliberation. I'm actually going to put that in last. Doing it first just wasn't working out for me, so we're going to paint the character, then do the background, and then essentially use adjustment layers to really fold the character into said background. Okay, so I think it is time for a tiny bit more shading on the ears. Usually I do the ears last, so I don't know why I'm doing them now. Just being unpredictable, I guess. And then we are going to make a highlight layer and start bringing some light back into this character. So a new layer of the skin, as always, we create that clipping mask, set to normal. And we are going to start with the basic skin tone we have there, and grab a highlight color that's slightly more saturated and slightly colder than the surrounding areas. And I'm going to begin with a large brush, about that will do, and we're going to start with the forehead. As you can see, this highlight is fairly subtle color. I'm going to be, again, building it up incrementally, but I usually start with the forehead because the forehead is often the place that reflects the most light. And then we are going to essentially bring this color down to the cheekbones. You get a lot of highlights on the cheeks like that, or the top of the cheeks above the cheekbone, I should say. Again, very, very light because we're going to want to make sure this is nicely blended in. And then on the chin there, as you can see. And finally, I'm going to bring it down to the lip as well. You usually find that the side of the lip that's more in the light actually ends up reflecting quite a lot of highlights. Why are the highlights on the same layer? Purely because when I introduce a new kind of color layer or a new kind of layer of lighting to a piece, I like to do it on a separate layer so that if I don't like it, I can just get rid of it and start again rather than ruining everything on the layers underneath. So once I'm happy with the highlights, I will merge them down into the skin, same as I did with the shadows. It's basically just keeping things separate at the start to make sure I like them, so I haven't got to redo anything I've already done later. Okay, and I'm toying with adding a tiny bit of shadow, a light on the other side, but not much. Very gentle, since the main light is coming from this side. Alright, next thing to do, blend it in. And again, this is quite a very, very gentle. I'm barely touching the canvas with my pen as I paint. Again, this is why you really want to have the transfer setting turned on your brush. I'll just quickly show you where it is. It's here. You want to make sure that little box is ticked, and your opacity jitter and flow jitter are both set to 0%. The control is pen pressure, and it is at minimum, and that will allow you to get a really gentle touch to start building up that tone. Oh, this isn't an art question, but a Photoshop one. You work in Photoshop. Do you ever run into the problem where your spacebar for the hand tool stops working? And if so, how do you fix it? I'm really sorry. I'm not going to be much help here because I am a weird artist who barely ever uses keyboard shortcuts, so I don't actually use the spacebar at all. So I'm really sorry, but I can't really help with that question. I don't even use shortcuts to switch between my brush and my eraser. It's really bad. I could definitely be more efficient, but I still paint like I'm a traditional painter, and because again my tablet's quite small, I find it's quicker just to move around it with the cursor. So sorry about that. Yeah, so basically we're just going a step lighter and adding another increment of brightness to the kind of brightly lit sections. So a slightly lighter shade of blue. And then blend, 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 blend. I'm just going to check out, because obviously I'm not painting the nose just yet, but when I do, we might need to bring this lighting down a bit. Alright, let's add some of this light to the cheekbone. Just starts giving the face a lot of nice depth when you can bring this sort of colour in. When you bring the highlights in, sorry. We've also got quite a lot of highlight around that corner of the nose there, so let's just put a bit of a blanket highlight down there just to blend that in. And again on the chin there. And there we go, there are some nice little highlights, and we've kept it fairly subtle. I do want, after we kind of want that slightly, almost not ghostly, but Kalashtar have a very interesting kind of air about them that we want to keep. So with the highlights done, and we're fond of them, you can kind of see what difference they make by turning them on and off. We're going to merge those down and blend them down into the skin texture, as I mentioned earlier. And the next thing we're going to do, I think it's nose time, you know? I think it's time to do the nose. So, as before, new layer, clipped to the one below, we're going to paint the nose. And to start with, I'm going to grab a slightly more pinky tone, because noses, often you get more blood vessels kind of close to the surface, so they tend to be a slightly richer, kind of pinker tone to the rest of the face. And we're going to do what I call my Animal Crossing method, where we start with basically shading the triangular kind of shape of the nose in place, which kind of ends up looking a little bit like an Animal Crossing character. Once that's done, we are going to again use the eyedrop tool to select a color in between and just blend this triangle into the rest of the face. Very gently. And then we can start actually bringing the shadows and light in that we need. So I'm looking at my reference, and we've got a bit of light that comes upside the nose here, which we can just suggest there and then blend back in. It's all about constant blending, this style, I'm afraid. A little bit tedious, but it has nice effects. So once that is done, I am just going to add a little bit more light, like so, around here. And then we can start the shading proper. So I'm going to grab a darker shading colour and use this just to mark out areas of the lower side of the nose that are slightly more in shadow than the rest. This usually takes the form of just a, just kind of follows the general circular kind of shapes and contour of the nostrils and the nose, really. Depending on your lighting, the shape might be a bit different, but in this case it's fairly run-of-the-mill. And we end up with something that reminds me a little bit of the nose of like a satyr. It looks a little bit like an animal nose to start with. So the next thing we need to do to kind of start tone down that look is just to blend these edges in. Hey, thank you so much to Johnny F 1983. Thank you so much for the follow. I hope I said that right. Then I'm just gonna pop in. You tend to get a little bit of shadow where the corner of the nostril kind of arches over here, so I'm just gonna gently put a bit of shadow in there and blend that in. Like so, there we go. Tiny bit more blending around those edges. There we go, nice. The next thing to do is add what I like to refer to as the diamond of power, which is to say most noses will have a kind of diamond-shaped area of highlight on the tip. Sometimes it's more a triangle or a rectangle. It kind of depends on your nose shape. For me, I tend to have the diamond or a triangle. This character is going to have a slight diamond. And it's like a central area of highlight that acts as a bit of an anchor for highlighting the rest of the nose. What is my streaming schedule? So most weeks I will stream on Wednesdays and Fridays. Both same time. I start at 5 p.m. UK time. I believe that's 5 hours ahead of Eastern, 8 hours ahead of Pacific, and 6 hours ahead of Central. Yeah, that's the thing, pixel linguistic. I often invent silly names for things like the Animal Crossing method or the Diamond of Power because it helps me kind of remember the process. I have a very bad memory, and little things like that, little monikers, kind of help me compartmentalize and structure the way I do things. So grabbing once again that lightest tone we have on the tip of the nose, the next thing to do is paint a stripe right down the nose itself, which is kind of like the top bit that gets some highlights, and then once again blend that back in. And that's basically the nose done. All we need to do now is add a bit of a stronger highlight, just on the nose tip, on the nose, just here, and some deeper shadows around the edges, and we'll kind of work into the overlines layer a bit here. I'm going to make this a tiny bit more saturated because again you get a whole lot of blood vessels in the little inny bits. It's really hard to find, I don't know the proper words for them. Around the inny bits of the nose you get a lot of blood vessels, which means you get more pinky colours in the creases. I'm doing this on the overlines so that I can again minimise where I've got the line art, and just again it helps blend the line art back into the painting. Hi there, is there somewhere I can find more information on commissions? Of course, yeah, at the moment my commissions are closed, purely because I've got a few contract projects going on which are eating up a lot of my time. However, when I open commissions, I tend to make a Twitter post about it, so it's very obvious. I will just drop a link in here, and you can find, if you scroll down a bit, on my Patreon there is a public post which has the information from when I last opened commissions, which kind of contains all of the prices and that sort of thing for you to find. My prices are going to be changing a little bit when I open commissions again, but again I'll be making that very clear in a public post. Alright, so next thing to do, we need to put some dark shadows in the nostrils where they kind of disappear into darkness. Weirdly, painting a nose is making my own nose really itchy, so sorry about that. So I'm just going to suggest, it's kind of important, you don't just want to dollop a really dark shadow over the entire area because it can look a bit weird. You kind of want to suggest the dark shadows of the nostrils at the corners and then graduate that into the rest of the skin color. So for example, I'm starting with that really dark blackish purple and then graduating into this darker purple rather than the black almost. And often you find that the skin color, even the really bright part, continues right up to the foot of the nostril. Almost going like up into the nostril space. But yeah, you often get that kind of effect going on. And then it's just a matter of blending it out until you've got shapes that you're happy with. Alright, there we go. There is a nose. Roll positive gaining, perfect. Well, that sounds like you will probably, like I say, I try and make it really obvious when commissions open. Oops, got lipstick on my finger there. So, no one misses it. Oh, Quietly Freya, thank you so much. When I get to her eyes, I will double check, because I've got the collage of reference material you sent me. I've got that up on my other screen. I will be referencing that very closely. Speaking of which, it's almost time to work on the eyes, but first we want to do the lips. So I'm just going to double check to make sure there's no kind of special colour for the lips I need to be aware of. Just zooming in on my ref images. Yeah, so kind of dark, again, that slightly vampy edge to lips. So we're going to go for a dark purple. We're going to saturate it a little bit more than what we've been working with. Slightly more kind of red. And go from there, see if we like it. Oh, thank you so much, Roll Positive Gaming. That's very, very kind. Tilly17. No, you don't have to have a character already. I paint for a lot of people who don't have existing art of their characters. It adds a little bit of a fee because essentially I'm having to spend time working on the design itself as well as the artwork, which are kind of two separate disciplines. But I absolutely take loads of commissions from folks who've never had art or a solid design of their characters before. But yeah, what I tend to do with the commission process is I will do an initial sketch, and I will make sure to show that to you, depending on the type. For the portraits, I don't tend to do one just because they're a lot smaller and simpler. But for anything over the simple portraits, I will send you an initial sketch to approve, and that's when you can kind of add things, make changes and stuff. Because obviously if you want big changes after I've already finished the piece, I do need to do kind of fees for that, because it does add quite a lot of time to change things. So here I'm basically just potting in the base colors for the top and bottom lip. The bottom lip tends to be a lighter but similar shade to the top lip. And there's a lot of rendering that goes on here, so often your lips will look a bit funny when you start out, but you kind of got to stick with it. I usually shade from the corners first, because that's where you get a lot of natural shadow. And then going along the bottom, and then we can go back to top lip, grabbing a darker version of the initial color, and going up from those corners. So what I'm gonna do with my next commissions round when I open them is I'm gonna do it through Google Forms, and when you submit your form, you can specify the character that you want to commission me. I will have an option for undecided, or if you have several options, you can kind of put them down. There are some types of characters that, oh goodness, my fringe is really getting annoying, that I tend to be naturally a little bit better at painting. For example, I don't paint like, well, I say I don't paint super anthro characters, but I do, because I do Tabaxi and Dragonborn, and I tend to take more of an animalistic approach with those. One thing I don't paint a lot of are mechs, like 100% mechs. Obviously artificers and stuff are one thing, but like more futuristic cyberpunky mechs are quite different. I don't tend to do those as much. Just kind of checking out the reference for these lips. I want to bring in a little bit more light to the bottom lip, I think. But yeah, I'm hoping to have all of that nice and clear on a Google form when I do open commissions. Oop, not that big. That brush is way too big. Yeah, Warforged are, again, they're different, and it varies on the Warforged. If you're saying, oh, I've got a modern campaign, and this is my Warforged, and they're, like a proper, like, I don't know, they look like the Master Chief or something. Is that what you call it, the Master Chief from Halo? I get confused because I was never a Halo player, so whenever I see people write Master Chief, I think of Master Chef, the TV show. Yeah, so that's that. Anyway, if it looks like a super modern, like, Call of Duty style Warforged, I'll probably say no, just because that's not really my jam. But yeah, it depends character to character, really. Okay, back to lips. What I'm gonna do is, you tend to get a slight bit of light coming underneath, like so, with shiny lips like that. So I'm basically slowly replacing the line art as I go. It depends. If it's a joint commission, it's for 2 people, then you can absolutely request 2 characters. I will have an option for that. I'm not going to be doing multiples of this style, which is the full body, full detail, because I really need to limit how many of those I'm opening. Like I say, I've got a lot of contract work right now, so I can't take many full detail, full body slots, because they take me an awfully long time to paint. So there's only going to be a few of those available. So I probably won't be allowing like single people to book multiple of those. just to keep things fair so as many people can get them as possible. I hope that's kind of understandable. But depending on what it is, so for example, the portrait slots that I do, I enjoy taking multiples of those at a time because they work quite well as like party type commissions. Those absolutely you'll be able to reserve as many of those as you like. Alright, let's give a little bit of love to the inside of the mouth, I think, now. Which of course is going to mostly be very dark. I'm going to start with a very dark kind of pink and go from there. So I can already see that this needs to be darker and less saturated. And then we can just about see the shape of the top teeth there. Whoops, didn't mean to bring up brush settings there. Trying to see how it's looking like now you zoomed out. Question, are you planning to stream a game? I seem to catch drawing. So I do occasionally do streams of TTRPG games. I haven't done any for quite a while, mostly just because I've been so busy. But it's something I want to get back into in the next few months. And I've been talking to a few parties about certain things I might be getting involved in. I can't talk about anything for definite yet because of NDAs. But do watch this space because I'm planning to do some interesting things coming up soon. Okay, so we've got this base color. We need a really dark color for the corners. So I'm just going to work that in now. And then perhaps almost a lighter color just to suggest tongue. Maybe I'll probably take it away if I don't like it. Do I like that shade? Not really. Not really. I'm gonna get rid of it, so probably come back to the mouth later. Okie dokie, so with the lips more or less done, God, my nose is killing me. It's because all of these bits of fringe, they tickle my nose like crazy. Do I make D&D covers? At the moment I don't, purely because I charge professional rates and they take me a very long time to do, so I do not have currently the time to do D&D cover style art, because I've got too many other kind of official projects working on at the same time, and I'm trying not to overstretch myself, but it's something I might do in the future. Okay, now we're going to just give the eyes some love. That's kind of like the next thing to do. We want to add a bit more, some more kind of dark tones to the eyes. I want to get that real kind of smoky, slightly vampiric vibe going. I'm just going to merge that down because we're happy with that. Oh, my hair. That's the thing, my hair still isn't quite long enough to be tied back properly, and I'm trying to grow it out as well, so I'm trying to use hair ties as little as possible. But it does mean it's just constantly in my face. I usually use like tiger clips to gather it at the back, but it doesn't get the straggly bits at the front, which are the result of my old fringe growing out. Oh, it's so bad. I need a haircut. I don't know what to do though. I want my hair to be long, but I also don't like dealing with it. The eternal struggle. Every time my hair starts getting long, I'm like, cut it all off, get rid of it. Or just wear a better Alice band. Anyway, ignoring all that, let's just continue shading the eyes. Gonna move this shadow over a tiny bit. Oh, the cool music's playing. And I'm just gonna bring up my reference again. Okay, so we have some interesting light play going on around here. I'm going to just grab like a pinkier version of this highlight because again, you tend to get more pinks in amongst the eye itself. So we're gonna really lean into the purple here and have it slightly going up there. You often get this, you often get a bit of light in the central corner of the eye. Oh, we're on the wrong layer, I just realized. Haha! No wonder it wasn't going over some of this. And And then sometimes I'm just gonna like hone it back a bit, take it back to the grey where it's a little bit too strong. And we can also add like that kind of shine on the top eyelid. And slightly more reserved on this side because this side is in more shadow. And yeah, there's some progress on the eyes. Oh, this music you're listening to is all by an artist named Kai Engel. It's very good ambient, royalty-free music. It's great for just relaxing to, and I find it's really good for streaming, so definitely check it out. Yeah, that's the other problem. Like, I kind of hope my headphones would just do the work for me, but they really don't. They just don't hold it back. Okay, let's just ramp up this smoky eye bit while we're here. Hey, thank you so much, Angelus Lucis, for the subscription. That is so kind of you. Subs make such a massive difference, and I really, really appreciate them. All small streamers do. And thank you. I'm very, very grateful. Okay, I'm quite happy with how those eyes are looking. We're going to probably go back in and add a few more details as we go, but for now, I think that is cool. So, going back to my reference for this character, I'm just going to... Originally, this character had solid kind of purple in the way of the eyes. I'm just going to check if that is still going to be the same. Freya, you'll have to let me know if you have any specific thoughts of if the eyes are any different from the original portrait I did for you, and if so, do let me know. And Angelus Lucis, thank you so much for the sub gift in chat. That's amazingly kind. I have the kindest people. Thank you so much. Thank you, honestly. That's very, very sweet. Okay, so I'm going to start doing the kind of solid purple Kalashtar style eyes, and we can change it if we want to. So, new layer. I'm going to straight up call it eyes. And, oh, immediately, straight back in my face. And we're just going to kind of go with that. So, we're going to go for slightly more blue-toned purple, I think, than what we started with. So I'm going to start with a kind of mid-tone purple and go from there. Just filling in the entire kind of area for the eye to exist with this nice purple. And one thing we mustn't forget to do is add in that tiny little kind of dark fleshy shade in these corners. Again, if Stu was here, Stu would know the name for what those bits are. Stu knows all. And then we can go ahead and add some shadow in too. Because even though these eyes are going to be quite glowy, there's still going to be some shadow present. And while we're here, we might as well blend it just a little bit. Alright, now it's time for highlights. We're going to move into the blue for these. Grab this paler purple colour. And I'm actually going to do this on the Overlines layer. We're straight up just going to add this brighter purple in the top right. And then we're going to switch to a, again, a similarly light but slightly more desaturated vibe of the purple. And that ends up, you kind of get a bit of secondary light coming on the other side that's a little bit more desaturated. Like so. And finally, we go up another notch and we'll grab a nice bright lavender. And use that for an even brighter kind of highlight, like so. And there is that. And lastly, we're going to grab an almost white tone of blue, and we are just going to pop in a little shiny. When it's like that, it makes it look like she's looking to the right, so we need to be a bit more careful. I'll try it here. There we go, that's a bit better. And what I'm gonna do is something fun, because it's fun and I like it. We are going to do a little experiment. We're gonna grab a pale lavender, we're gonna grab an overlay setting, and we're gonna just paint that right over the top. Then we're gonna play with some settings, because it's fun. I quite like linear light. What we're gonna do, we're gonna stick on a blur and get these eyes glowing, because she's casting magic and using her magic suit, so the eyes gotta glow. Thank you so much Fallout 4 Critter for the follow. I hope you enjoy the stream. Eye portals, I like that, that's great. And yeah, with that, it's time to let's give some love to the ears. The ears need a bit more rendering, and we're here to do it, so. Kareem Zaymer, thank you so much for the cheers and the bits. That's very, very kind. Thank you so much. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and just add a bit more rendering to the ears. I'm going to do some of this on the overlines layer, because why not? I'm kind of training myself to use overlines a bit more, because I think it adds a really nice effect to paintings. We're going to grab the highlight color and start adding that in a few places too. And then the other side, the ears are slightly darker because they are in more shadow. But this is an excellent opportunity to paint over this line art a little bit. And then there are still places where light will manage to get through. So a few highlights here and there, just to keep the texture looking nice and smooth and skin-like. And I think now is an excellent time to save before we lose everything. It happens to the best of us. It happened to me twice last night. I was working on an NDA piece and Photoshop crashed twice. I often find Photoshop sometimes throws a wobbly when I am using my own custom brushes, especially when you hit the undo button. So if you've done a load of work with custom brushes and you want to hit undo, make sure you save first. I really recommend that. Okay, so that's most of the facial shading done. But before we finish up with these layers, we do want to add some eyebrows. I believe this character, if things haven't changed since the first time I painted them, I'm pretty sure they have a very dark navy purple kind of slate colored hair. So it holds true that their eyebrows will be a similar hue. In fact, I almost have the right color selected already, so we'll just go from there. Thank you so much to Danny Dark and Risky Rose for the follows. Yeah, I think it's also because, I don't know, I always seem to have problems with my version of Photoshop. I think it might be to do with some Windows updates I had recently seem to be clashing, but I don't know. Who knows when it comes to this sort of thing, because I certainly don't. Also, I think I need to upgrade my graphics card. That's the other sad thing going on here. I'm using a graphics card that belonged to my little brother that he donated to me when he upgraded his computer. Okay, let's give these eyebrows some highlights. Starting to work our way up towards blue. And then I'm going to go up to the overlines for the final highlights. Oh gosh, yeah, it seems like even if you have the most up-to-date machine, you're still going to have issues, so. My machine was very budget when I built it. I didn't have a whole lot of cash to spend, so I built, the whole build I think was around 350, 400 quid, bearing in mind the bits that I kind of borrowed from my brother. Okay, let's paint hair. Hair is great fun. It's one of my favorite things to paint ever, so let's do it and I'll show you how the process goes. To start with, we're going to grab a mid-shade from those eyebrows. Kind of reusing colors we've used elsewhere is a great way to keep your colors looking like they belong where they are and aren't kind of plucked randomly. And we're just going to start by filling in the area of the hair. And the music's got really intense for this. I feel like I'm painting for my life right now. And it pays to be attentive to your line art and not go over the lines at this stage. It'll just make your life a hell of a lot easier later when you go to paint the next layers, if they've already got their edges nicely defined by the layers above. Alright, going around these little round corners. And we'll just fill that whole area in. And then we can work on this nice kind of braid updo that she's got going. I love painting these things, and I wish so hard I could do these sorts of hairstyles in real life. I paint complicated hairstyles every day, but I cannot for the life of me actually do them on a person. Same with like makeup. I paint characters and like makeup and stuff. I can't do it myself. Suddenly I come out into the real world and my hand-eye coordination is awful for this kind of thing. Oh, and we've got another strand of hair down here. Just fill that in nice and quickly. Okay, and with that in, what we're going to do next is we're just going to tidy up the skin layer before we begin. As you can see, there are areas where we've gone over the lines a bit, so it's good to tidy these places up as we go. Just saves us work in the long run. And there was a little bit up in the hairline, I think, yeah. And just gonna delete where this hair kind of comes over here. I'm just gonna need to just paint that back in, there we go. And then we can continue on the other side. Okay, delightful. We have the hair blocked in and the edges are nicely tidied. So what we're going to do is we're going to once again select that hair layer. We're going to make sure the alpha channel is locked so we can't paint outside of the areas we've already defined. And we're going to start by selecting a darker color. And what we do with this is we just roughly, very roughly, just paint it in everywhere where we're going to get shadows. And of course the hat is going to be casting quite a broad shadow, but I'm actually going to leave that out for now. That doesn't come in until later. Then we do the same but the opposite kind of direction. We grab a lighter color and just paste that on in areas where light is going to be kind of more prevalent. And then we go to blur, Gaussian blur, and we just stick on a large blur to give ourselves a gradient between those colors that we just defined. Oh, Kareem Zamir, thank you so much. That's very kind. And then to begin the actual rendering process, we're going to select one of my favorite brushes and the only brush I use for painting these sorts of characters that isn't a standard hard round brush. It's called the Lewin Fur Brush, part of the Lewin Fur Brushes set, which you can find on Google if you just kind of, well, if you just search for it on Google, you'll find it. I believe it's on Gumroad. You can kind of donate a little bit of money to access it. We're going to grab the fur pointy end brush. I drop the darkest point in our gradient we just defined. And starting from the hairline radiating out, we're just going to render the shadows present in the hair. Oh, Freya, thank you so much. And yeah, Aimless Wanderings, I totally get that. As soon as I start trying to like braid my own hair, keep in mind it's mostly too short to hold a braid anyway, my arms ache like crazy. Which is annoying, because I'm pretty strong naturally as a person, like in terms of what I can lift. Mostly because I have very wide shoulders. I'm actually quite tall, I'm like 5'8". I'm quite solid. But when it comes to like just individual arm strength, I'm like, ugh, I am noodle. And this is where we start just suggesting the shadow cast from the hat. And we're gonna again be adding more to this soon. More of that shadow is gonna be on a separate layer. But it helps just to start suggesting it. Alright, and we're going to grab a darker version and use that to shade areas that are already very dark, basically. I'm going to switch down the size of the brush a little bit, just because these areas are a little bit more fiddly inside the braid. Braids usually get a lot of shadow kind of radiating out from the center of the braid, so that's where I usually start with my shadows. And then we might get some of this really dark tone in other areas of the hair too, so we can pop that in. Yeah, I can never decide what I want to do with my hair. I had like a one-sided pixie for a while, which was fun, but I really like having long hair, and long hair is more suitable for a lot of lops. Especially a lot of them are kind of like period vibe. But my hair often doesn't like going long. It starts breaking after a certain length, so I'm trying to adopt healthy hair care techniques to avoid that happening. Okay, next stage is to add some highlights, and we're really gonna move towards the blue here with these highlights. And we're just gonna add these in areas where the light's really gonna be getting to the hair. I might even do some of these on the overlines once we've put down a kind of a baseline. Okay, there's some baseline highlights. I'm now going to jump up to the overlines layer, grab brighter version, zoom right in, make the brush a bit smaller, and just put in some really precise kind of streaks. And avoiding the areas which are going to be shadowed by the hat as well. Also, for the longest time, I wanted to dye my hair like turquoise, and I still do. It's just the hair dyeing process is so much maintenance and expense, and I fall in and out of wanting to do it constantly. Alright, there we have some nice defined highlights. I'm gonna go ahead and bring some down here, just so these little strands kind of stick out a bit. To be honest, I've kind of embraced wearing wigs as well with LARP. Anyone who saw the photos I uploaded yesterday of my character, Mallory, would see that I found a really nice wig for that character, which is very long and curly and frizzy. So yeah, I do a bit of both. When I'm doing festival style LARPs, that's Empire LARP, I tend to like to wear just my normal natural hair, because keeping a wig on once you're fighting in a field is actually quite a lot of work. And hey, thank you so much, Time Lord's wife, for the follow. I hope you enjoyed the stream. Okay, so we have just finished painting the hair. The next thing to do, I think, is to tackle the gorgeous hat that she is wearing. So I'm just gonna double check color references, if there's anything specific. I think again we're going for these grays, blacks, and purples. So I'm going to keep the hat. I think it's going to be a classic gothic witch's hat. I think it's going to be black, you know. So we need to make a new layer for it, and we need to name the hair layer, because I haven't done that yet. Let's do that right now and make a new layer for the hat. I'm going to make this hat the black. So the thing about painting black, whether it's colors or for clothes, for hair, for anything, you don't ever really get true black, which is to say, you never, when you're painting in a semi-realistic style, you're never really going to use like this. You're never going to use complete like triples, like 6-0 black. When I'm painting black, I tend to use a derivative of another color. In this case, I'm going to use a purple derived black and see how it goes. Sometimes I change this, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I don't know what I'm doing. But this is our starting point. And the nice thing about digital art is at any point you can change things and update them. Yes, dark grey to black. I like that. I'm going to say black for the underside because it's obviously going to have more shadow. But I do like the idea of a bit of an ombre coming up here. So let's run with it and we can change it as we go along. Just again painting out to those lines, and again you can see there's some tidying up on the ears to do, which I will attend to once I've done this. And across the top. And then just following around on the other side. Whoops, made a bit of a mess there. Where is that coming from? Is that the overlines though? No. Eyes? No. Skin? No. Hair? No. Is it a mark on my tablet? Maybe? Is it the line art? It is the line art. Let's just get rid of that mark. Alright, we have a base for the, essentially the rim of the hat. Just going to trim down a couple of elements there. And I think, yeah, we'll just go from here, see how it goes. So we're starting with this very dark color. I'm just going to go up very slightly to a slightly lighter gray and start just messing around with the rendering. Aurora Zero. It's so relatable, right? You know, it's just like, oh god, where is that little scrappy mark? What layer is it on? I do not know. And then again, lots of blending here. Some areas of darker colour, especially where we have a little fold that goes around the head, and shadows cast by being against the head and the hair as well. Yeah, it happens all the time because often to close menus I'm quite lazy, and rather than look for the X in the corner like a normal person would, I just tap elsewhere on the canvas, and I often have a brush tool equipped when I do that, so it just succeeds in making little messes. Add a slightly lighter area over here where it catches the light a little bit. And then once again, ever such a slightly lighter grey over here for this folded area, just to pick up a little bit of light. So we've got kind of the internal bit of the hat. Now is where I kind of want to add the shadow to the hair. So I'm going to make a multiply shadow. Just go across kind of the crown of the head like so. And we're going to add some details to kind of bring the hair out from the hat a little bit as we go. But for now, we're still kind of working on our base level colors, so keeping it simple. You don't want to get bogged down in super details too early. Yeah, of course, Cauliflower. I would happily design it. No problem at all. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just daub in the rest of the hat. I'm going to start with this nice mid-grey, and then we can look at shading and adding all these tasty details. And remind me, quietly Freya, did you have a preference on what colour the metallic elements of the suit and the filigree are going to be? I know we talked about brass or copper. I know that you said you just didn't want gold. So do let me know if you have any stronger feelings regarding the metal finish. I'm just going to go ahead and fill this top bit up. A lot of these details will be done on layers clipped to this base layer. It just makes it easier to put the base in without having to essentially go around all these little crannies and corners again. Okay, there is the outline. Okay, so some gun metals. Yeah, you can get some nice combinations. Whoops, I haven't filled that in at all. You can get some nice combinations of kind of dark silvers with coppers and kind of mix them in together a little bit, especially if you go for the more pinky or the more kind of the airing away from the golden colors, you know, shades of gold. Again, with kind of tarnished brass or bronze as well, those can look quite nice. So we'll see how it goes. I'll probably experiment with a few options and go with what looks better aesthetically, obviously avoiding bright gold. Alright, so there is that base in, and so we can start shading. Obviously we've got this tie here, which is probably going to be purple, but we'll get to that in a minute. And now, because we did talk about having a bit of an ombre effect, I'm thinking about making the ombre actually around the base here, and then having a real dark black on the tip, because then it'll contrast really nicely with the metallic elements. So I'm quickly going to paint in that gradient by hand rather than using a blur, because sometimes the blurs are a little bit too clean, and it can look better to hand paint your gradients. Okay, yeah, I like how that's shaping up. Cool, so with that done, I'm going to make a new layer on top. Convert clipping mask, multiply, and we're going to go with my age-old favourite technique, which is using multiply to make shadows. In fact, rather than using it to make shadows, we're going to take away from it to create light, which is what I usually enjoy doing. Which means basically gently stroking away any areas where light is hitting rather than painting in where the shadows are cast. And this is a technique I've used for years now. It just kind of made art click for me a bit when I realized I really preferred painting with light rather than painting with shadow when it came to shading, especially with more hyper-real or realistic character designs. It's much easier to create volume if you are kind of shading away where the shadow is from these kind of shapes. At least I find it that way. Not everyone does. You really need to just go with what works for you. But yeah, for me, it was when I saw a tutorial on shading by, I think it was by Griff Snuff on DeviantArt, like years ago, like a long time ago, which made a big deal for me. Okie dokie, so with that we have a nice shadow going on. I do want to add, I'm just going to merge this down actually, whoops, don't know why I did that, I wanted to merge down, you fool. And then we can add a little bit of highlight maybe. Thank you so much to Dread Ninja for the follow. Oh, thank you so much, Archhunt3R, that's very, very kind. Yeah, it's not something I considered for, and it was never something I was taught in the closest thing I had to official art classes would have been my A-levels. So it was never something that was really taught to me, but when I kind of saw it being used, I loved it. I just really like it as a technique. And yeah, it is kind of in some ways quite unique to digital art as a technique. It's harder to do, I think, if you're using traditional mediums. I really like it. Okay, in fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to merge these two together now. We have a nice solid base for them. I'm just going to add a few extra shadows. For example, here we've got a very deep crease in the hat. So I'm just going to add some shadows into those areas, like so, liking that, that looks fun. And then we can start adding the detail to the hat, which is the filigree and the tie. So new layer, clipped. And we're going to go with, I'm going to grab a purple derived from her hair color for this, I think. Thank you so much to Shiny for the follow. I don't know why I said it like that. I kind of, whenever I see the word shiny written with extra Y's, I imagine Tamatoa from Moana, who is one of my favorite all-time Disney villains. I freaking love that crab. I feel like a lot of my D&D characters embody the energy that crab brings to the table. So yeah, we're just going to paint the tie on the witch's hat here. Oh, thank you so much, Shiny. It's very, very kind. So we've got this tie here. I'm just going to add some shading right off the bat. Like so. Let's add some light shading as well, because we want to bring light into play. Do this on the Overlines layer because I think it's fun. I love the music in Moana so much. It's just such a feel-good film. I love it. Oh really? That's interesting. I actually used to post on a couple of the D&D Facebook pages, but I haven't done it for a while. Alright, the next thing I want to detail in this pretty little hat is the filigree up here, which you can just about make out under the very, very dark colours, the base tone, which I'm just going to add some, we've got some opacity problems here. And I'm going to start this with, I think we'll start with the gunmetal for now. So, for painting silvers, which, weirdly, I find painting silvers harder than painting golds and bronzes, but we're going to take a stab at it. We're going to start with a mid-grey, with a slight bit of purple mixed into it. Making sure that's turned off. We are now just going to paint a base layer for where this filigree is hanging out, and Photoshop's going to make my life difficult, I guess. Oh, Orange Ocarina, thank you so much for the sub. That's very, very kind. Yeah, just thank you so much. Subs are very, very much appreciated here. All small streamers like myself are. Immense rush of gratitude when anyone subs. Okay, just following around this corner, keeping an eye on the time as well. Trying to stick nice and close to our line art as well. Want it to look nice and neat. Oh, Quietly Freya, thank you so much. This character has been an absolute joy to work on, especially because she's quite different. And I really like her design. So a little metal cap on the tip of the hat, so you can kind of see how that looks up there. Now, for shading metals of this nature, I will start off with some shadows. Again, these are going to be fairly subtle. I don't want to overdo it with these. I'm just going to turn on that as well. And that's about all I'm going to do for shadows, because most of the magic when it comes to painting metallic elements comes from the light. Again, painting with light is my favorite thing to do, apparently. So a 6 we will keep with for now. And gently, I'm just going to add light to the metal. And this filigree is forming a lot of different complex shapes, so it's probably something I will revisit later on. But for now, you can treat some parts like cylinders or like cones, and others, like these bits, are more like strips. But metals almost always have a slight backlight on them, so that's quite important to remember, that your darkest color will never be on the edge. In fact, most things will have a small bit of ambient backlighting on them. And often you want to use your highlight color almost to kind of outline areas when it comes to filigree and just general metal shading. Okay, now we're going to bring in the lighter tones. So I'm going to jump up to blue and really jump up to the bright tones. And you almost want to identify a stripe where light will be really bright going through a piece. So for example, here it's going to be brighter in the middle. And then when we zoom out, we've kind of got the nice kind of filigree coming along. Again, we can still add some more light to this though. So I'm going to go right up to that brightest bright color. And just in a few places, especially corners, you tend to get this a lot, add those bright spots. And there we go, there's our kind of metal cap to the hat. So I think one of the last things I'm going to do... Oh, I know what I'm going to do, something I meant to do earlier. Haha! We've also got a silver trim to the hat itself. So let's just go ahead and put down the base for that. We'll see if I've got time to render it all out today as well. She is a very cool concept. I'm really enjoying painting her. Whoops. Again, let's be nice and neat with our line art. Attention to detail. Oh, me too. I have the most terrible dice luck. I was running a game from Candlekeep Mysteries for some friends the other day, like one of those little one-shots. And it was The Price of Beauty, the one written by Mark Humes, which, by the way, is a really fun little adventure. I really recommend it. But even when we were doing the big boss fight, I could not roll a single successful saving throw. I rolled abysmally on all of my creatures' attack rolls. And that's just my life as a DM. My parties have an easy time of it because I roll so abysmally, so I have to throw really high challenge rating stuff at them. Going around this hat rim. And it's probably a good time to save as well, isn't it? I haven't saved for a while. There we go. There is the rim of the hat all painted in. Now let's do some nice silvery rendering. We're going to start, of course, with the shadow, because it's important to have our shadows playing around. We're also going to just lock, so we don't paint outside. I use, like, at the moment I mostly use Roll20 and I tend to keep rolls public. But it's a good idea. When I stream in person, I do use a screen, so if I want to fudge rolls for the purposes of a good story, I will. I can't be stopped. Just continue this bit of shadow coming up through here. Okay, lovely. Now we can jump up to the overlines once more grab one of the lighter silver colors and just start working in with our highlights. I'm going to drop down to a 7. This bit's going to be quite bright, so I'm not going to hold back on the nice bright silver tones. Let's just go down to a 4 for these details. And there's quite a lot of detail around here, so we want to get it in there. And like I said earlier, one of the good ways to get something to look silver is to make sure your darkest color isn't at the edge. Even so, some areas still are darker than others. Oh yes, when locking a layer, all I mean is I'm going up here, I'm selecting this little shape that looks like a set of little squares with 4 of them filled in, and it basically stops me from painting outside of the area that I've locked. So anywhere that's already essentially painted in, once it's locked, I can't paint outside of the area I've already kind of designated, if that makes sense. Chasing along here with this little highlight color, and then of course along the top line as well. Okie dokie. Okay, and then finally we'll add those brightest points of light in a few places. So just going to size up my brush to a 6 or so. Add a nice bit of bright light running across this slightly left-hand side, because that's the bit that's attracting the most light. And yeah, that is probably, unfortunately, where I'm going to have to leave it today, because I have Dungeons & Dragons in an hour and I need to cook dinner. And I'm really hungry, so thank you so much to everyone who joined me today. I'm going to drop some links in chat. First of all, if you've enjoyed my stream today, please consider following my Twitter. It's where I post all my updates, when I'll be streaming. Occasionally I do giveaways, that kind of thing, so please check out my Twitter there. I also have Instagram. I post more art on there. I also put costume making, LARP stuff, miniature painting, all that kind of stuff can be found on my Instagram. Thank you so much again, Kareem Zymer, thank you so much for the bits, that's very, very kind. And next up, I have a YouTube channel. If you would like to, if you missed the start of the stream and would like to catch up, I do upload my VODs on YouTube. Some of my past ones are quite useful. I kind of go into more detail about different areas of painting on my VODs, so do check those out. I also do a series on the lore of the game Destiny 2 because it has fantastic storytelling and I love reading it. And soon I'm going to be putting up some tutorial process videos on making your own LARP kit from scratch, which hopefully I'm still in the process of editing, but I have finished the costume now, so I can at least finish the video. Next up, ArtStation is the place to go if you purely want to look at my portfolio. Not much more to say than that. And finally is my Patreon, and if you want to throw a little support my way, and you like the work I do, Patreon or Twitch subs are the best way to do it. They really, really help artists like me with a bit of passive income, so do consider doing that if it tickles your fancy. Alright, so I will be back on Friday again at 5 PM UK time and you can join me for some more artwork. I might be working some more on this character. I might be working on a completely new character. Who knows? But I look forward to seeing you there, and until then, have a lovely week. Take it easy, stay safe, and I will see you all soon. Goodbye!